Well, to discuss this further, we're being joined by author and historian Dr. Webster Tarpley. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV. Now, these figures continue to rise every year with each war. Does this surprise you at all?
No, I think it reflects the tragic situation of the U.S. Military. And these are people who were recruited into a professional permanent military force. They were told that they were trying to defend their country, but they were then sent cynically to the other side of the world to fight in essentially conflicts of imperial domination and geopolitics, and it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up for them. This has been going on for 10 years now, and remember at the beginning it was not just Afghanistan, but there was also Bosnia, and then Iraq was added and other deployments. So they are overstretched, and in many ways they are demoralized. And the demoralization, I think, is what you see in these terrible social pathologies. The statistics that we've heard today continue a long-established pattern. A lot of it has to do with post-traumatic stress disorder, right? The old shell shock. This is the question of rape or sexual violence against female soldiers. The finding is that a female soldier in Iraq specifically was more in danger of being sexually assaulted by another member of the armed forces than she was from hostile actions. There were about 3,200 reported sexual assaults last year, but the reality is thought to be as many as 22,000 because a lot of them are not reported. 1 in 3 female soldiers comes back with some kind of a sexual trauma. Now, during the time that the people are in the armed forces, the statistic that we had during the hot years of the Iraq War, there were about 250 suicides per year in the U.S. military on active duty. But then when they come home and the units disperse, the suicide rate skyrockets. Right now it's about 6,000 per year. Every 3 days, every 2 days you've got every 3 days it's 2 soldiers that are former soldiers in this case that are committing suicide. So this is huge. Military veterans are 1% of the U.S. population, but they account for 20% of all suicides. And then when we get to domestic violence, the statistic I have is that the average veteran is 4.4 times more likely to engage in domestic violence. So I think this is a tragic situation, and it simply illustrates the futility of these wars and the terrible strain on the people that are called to fight them when there is no political motivation that makes sense to anybody.
Indeed, then what does this say about the way the wars and military campaigns are being led by the U.S. around the world when the psychological conditions of its own soldiers are as such?
Well, the wars, of course, are decided on by foreign policy elites who have nothing but contempt for the class of people, poor whites from Appalachia, people from the inner city ghettos of large cities. The elites have nothing but contempt for them, and you can probably see this in the lack of care, the lack of concern when they get back. By the time they've been demobilized, the minimum unemployment rate for these people is about 12%, and if they have post-traumatic stress disorder, then it skyrockets. So very little provision is made in this, and really one of the constants between the Bush administration and the Obama administration is a constant attempt by the administration to cut the funding for the Veterans Administration hospitals and other kinds of support for these veterans, because they come out of this meat grinder, of course, in terrible psychological and often physical conditions. So if you're in Afghanistan right now, you were told you went there because of Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, right? This entire mythology that we don't have time to go into now. But now that supposedly whoever was called bin Laden is now no longer on the scene, you wonder what is the point? And you're being told that the U.S. government is negotiating with the Taliban. Of course, they've been doing it for more than a year. What is the point of this? I think the levels of morale in the U.S. forces are, as shown by these statistics, approaching an all-time low.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. That was author and historian Dr. Webster Tarpley joining us there on the line from Washington. Dr. Tarpley, we thank you for your comments here on Press TV.